Hi, this is Sharon Schlurf Newcomb again, connecting with you via this podcast, which would actually be number 2, unless maybe this is the first one and you didn't see the hilarious fur crowd that we had supporting our first video, number 1, which was just supposed to be a quick run through and a test to see sound and photo quality. So essentially you're really seeing our first video, which is actually from now on, the video podcast is going to be titled Direction in an Age of Confusion. And I think you'll find it very interesting. It's based on historical fact and what has been happening in our country over the last 200 years. I'm going to give you a little walk through history, bring you through the present, and then give you the things and the methods of change that we have really experienced, especially in these last 10 years. I actually wrote about these originally in 1998. That's what I said. I originally started this project and Direction in an Age of Confusion September the 11th of 1998. So I think this is a great time to bring things to the forefront and share some of the knowledge and information and outcomes that I've actually tracked and are fact, not fiction, and not politically persuaded in any way. It's just really things that I think at this time and place people need to understand a little bit more about our current history, our politics, and our wonderful republic, the United States of America. As we continue this podcast, I just want you to know that it is from the Warrior Way Wellness Center, where we are in Williamsburg, Virginia. And I'm in the very first room that we set up here, which is called the Liberty Room. And as you can see, I'm very serious about our historical facts and what I would want to present to you over all of these years, from the very beginning to wherever we're going now. And as you look around the room, which maybe at one point will give you a total view, but it has all of our founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and we really honor everything that President Lincoln has done in his Gettysburg Address. We also have Patrick Henry, John F. Kennedy, we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we also honor Martin Luther King, the article about him, and I Have a Dream. So we look at these historical papers, documents, histories, important people who have really, at one point or another, changed something within our country that we all remember. And I think that's the important basis of connecting to the people as real people and our very significant history to again understand the connections that we need to make right now within the borders of our republic, the United States. So I'm going to start out with what most people know, I would hope, because I hear it often that it's stated otherwise. We are not a democracy. We have never been a democracy. We are a republic, and there's a big difference in that. The definition of a republic is a group of people working equally and freely for the same cause. A constitutional form of government who may elect representatives to implement it. The definition of democracy is significantly different. It is a government by the people, either exercised directly or through elected representatives, a political or a social unit based upon this form of rule by capitalism or individual equal interests. It's a fine line. A lot of people can hear it either way they choose to, but it in fact is different. The definitions that I just gave you are derived from Webster's Concise English Dictionary, New College Edition, American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language, and Webster's New Pocket Thesaurus Editor's New World Dictionary. I'm giving you what they all agree on as the foundation for a republic and the foundation for democracy. There are important distinctions and differences in these forms of government rule and are reflected in the exhibits throughout my book, The Direction of Age of Confusion, with charts and notations spanning over 20 years of change. Within this first segment, number 1, and talking about the ideas and our founding, there are going to be in every podcast and all of my text and written text, it's done the same way in charts and support documents. So ideas in number 1 study guide is actually called Systems versus Kingdoms. And there are going to be 5 areas to explore on what it means, systems versus kingdoms. And the first area is religion. The second area is education. And the third area, as I can get my paper open, don't want to make any mistakes here. The fourth area, or third area, is media. And the fourth area that we're going to be talking about is culture. So I'm going to repeat that for everybody. There are several areas in each of the sections of Direction and Age of Confusion, and each one is going to be modeled in the same way. Different areas, then there's going to be a basis, then I'm going to track for you the method of change and the intended results of the change that's happened over the time that we were founded, essentially to today. So the area religion that we're going to do today is the basis of our founding document. The Declaration of Independence was Judeo-Christian, but freedom to choose without any persecution protected by that document. I'll say it again. From the very beginning, we were a Judeo-Christian based country founded on a one God. I'm not making that about religion. I'm talking about the founding of our country. And many of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were not Christians. They were not of multiple faiths. Many of them were simply in agreement with one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So that's the premise. Some people would consider Judeo-Christian, others would just think under a universal God, but they were all in agreement that the most important thing was freedom to express your religions or your faiths or your beliefs without persecution. The method of change that began to occur at one point or another was the challenge to the Declaration of Independence and Constitution was the method would be to politicize or eliminate from eminent domain state or eliminate from public domain. What that meant was it would no longer be a private choice and allowance and moving forward in one nation individual with the choices of faith being understood, then, or it could be eliminated by political or public domain. This is what I said in 1998, and I'm just tracking. The intended results in this basis would be to challenge the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. It would be to politicize, again, or eliminate from our main support, our main foundation, and begin to divert it into public domain instead of the individual domain. And the intended results of that would be confusion of the public. Church, then we have church versus state. That's what's essentially tracking what has been happening over many years now, even decades. The idea in that way would be to take away human basic individual rights. Removal of basic premise of the original rights that were founded on our Declaration of Independence, and then would eventually, potentially move to our U.S. Constitution. It has a domino effect. Once you start persecution in the 21st century, wars and violence arise between Christians, Jews, Muslims, and even in some insane doctrines, the divisive or active extremists. That's a fact. So far what you've heard is just a hint of this really intense lead from September 11th of 1998. And I'm not going to give you or disclose a lot of the ways that I came to do this work. It was a long, hard journey through my life, and certainly having that military father of mine that I talk about when Old Warriors Die in one of our blogs on the What's Next blog in our website, veteranpathwayshome.org. It's just, I'm the Colonel's daughter, and my family has been part of the founding of this country, and being able to say to you that there's even documentation. I have a book upstairs written by an Oxford University professor who has released just in the last couple of years about how it's the American Indians and relationship with George Washington. And my family actually are Indians. I'm half native Nanacoke Nation Indian. And the parental side of my father's family came from Ireland pre-Revolutionary War under the persecution that was going on there, and came to America for religious freedom to begin with. So on my father's side, Irish. On my mother's side, Nanacoke Nation Indian, which Nanacoke Indian were one of the 6 nations that helped found the United States of America, and actually helped George Washington and all of the troops fight the British in order to what we have today. So there's generations in my family that instill this sense of history and loyalty and allegiance, and the consistency of my family serving in the military, even what I've done in my own service. So I don't come to any of this with any agenda other than understanding how important our heritage is on every side, whether or not it's Native American Indian, whether it's Irish, whether it's refugees from other countries, whether or not we can just simply agree on one premise. The Declaration of Independence made a decision over 200 years ago where we are today, and we can believe it and defend it or not. And so the next segment that you'll see that I'll do on the podcast as part of a direction of Age of Confusion in a systems versus government or kingdoms, as you may say, will eventually be the subject of education and how we were founded based on education belief system. Thank you for joining me. As we move forward, we will also be putting this into a download print version that has a lot more material, a lot more charts of very specific information that if you're interested, you'll be able to email us and we'll be able to deliver to you. Thank you.